So we have been RVing for 7 years now, and it's hard to believe that we've actually been on the road for that length of time. But one thing is, when we first got started RVing, we paid way more for campgrounds than what we should have. And that was really just because we were new and we just didn't know what we didn't know. So in this video, we're gonna help show you how you can save on campground costs. And there's a lot of ways that we've brought our costs down over the years when it comes to campgrounds. So this is going to be one of those videos you definitely want to bookmark. Maybe share with a friend that you know is considering the RV lifestyle. Let's jump in. So now the first way that we have learned to save is with campground memberships. Now, when we first jumped into the RV lifestyle, we didn't know anything about memberships, what they were, how did they work. And a lot of people would always talk about 1,000 trails. And so when we started researching that a little bit, what we found for us when we first got started, it wasn't the right fit. So I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. But first, let's also talk about state parks. Now, using cheaper options like state parks or parks run by a local city or county government is a great option to save. And most of these can be found on sites like Reserve America, but our favorite resource that we use when we search for campsites at state parks is a website called RV, which is also the sponsor of this video. Now, RV has over 4,000 campgrounds with over 500,000 campsites available to search for availability across the US. And for us, it is a huge time saver when it comes to looking for state park campgrounds. Now, here's the thing. State park campgrounds do book up quickly. And in some cases, like in the state of Florida, those state residents have an earlier booking window than non-residents. So a lot of these state park campgrounds do stay booked. But this is where and why we love using RV. Because in case you haven't had just life happen to you yet, and let me tell you, life does happen. We've had to cancel reservations more than once because of a change in schedules, or sometimes even in the event of a breakdown. And so there are dozens of campground cancellations that happen all of the time. And we personally have used RV to score reservations for these cancellations time and time again. Now, when a campground is sold out, I just use RV to set up a sold out scan, and I use the auto book feature when I have that scan set up. So that way, when a cancellation does happen, RV auto books that site for me as soon as it's available, and no other campground scanning service offers an auto book feature like RV. Now, our followers and viewers, now that we've been sharing about our RV experiences for a while, they continue to tell us about how they RV'd their campsite in various situations, from last minute cancellations to trips for next week, next month, or even next year. What we love is that RV is always looking and booking for you, because that's pretty much what they do, nonstop, 24/7, 365. RV does also have an option for a free trial as well. You can visit gratefulglamper.com/RV. I'll have a link in the description for you below as well. And remember, another great way that we use RV, and a lot of our followers use RV as well to save on these campsites, is they plan for not only this weekend, but also planning those bucket list type trips in advance by setting up those sold out scans now to snag those campsites for even next year. So when we first got started, 1,000 Trails was not a good fit for us. And that reason was we had some very specific areas of the United States that we wanted to explore first and foremost in our travels. And when we started looking at the 1,000 Trails network at that time, there were just not very many campgrounds in the network within the geographical areas that we wanted to be able to go and visit. And so it just didn't make sense for us financially to purchase that membership and then not really have a lot of those campgrounds that are in that network accessible to us during that first couple of years of RV life. Now we're in a kind of a different situation. We're primarily camping a lot more in the Southeast, specifically in the state of Florida. And there are so many 1,000 Trails campgrounds that are in the state of Florida. We're actually in one right here, right now in Largo, Florida. And so it did make sense for us to get a 1,000 Trails membership, but here's the deal. It still did not make sense for us because we are not full time, right? We have our home base and we have our RV. So we are back and forth between the two locations. Cancelations to get the big full-on, elite membership, the big package, right? So what we opted for instead is something called a camping pass. Now, the camping pass renews on an annual basis, and then you can have a specific zone or you can add on zones. So what we did is we got the camping pass for the southeast zone, so that has all of the ones in Florida, and then we added on the Encore Park. So now the cool thing about that is that there are Encore Parks all across the United States. We can use those. And then we have our ones in Florida. And some of the really cool parks in Florida, in the Florida Keys, are only $20 a night with that 1,000 Trails camping pass. And then parks like this one here cost us $0 a night with our camping pass. The number 3 way to help cut down on those campground costs is by utilizing discount clubs. Now, a great example of this is like the KOA card. Now, I will tell you, this is our personal experience with the KOA card. It's $35 a year and it saves you 10% off of KOA campgrounds. Now, here's the deal. Most of the time, KOA campgrounds are not your cheaper option for campgrounds, especially the ones that are a KOA resort or a KOA holiday. And that's just because they have a lot of amenities at the campground. It's really designed to be more of a destination in and of itself. So here is how we have used KOA memberships in the past. First, if you've run across a KOA journey, and you can find the KOA journey type campgrounds, they're usually in less populated areas. They're also usually very accessible right off of a major highway. So those journey type of campgrounds don't have as many amenities as the other type of KOAs, but you usually have your basic stuff. So you have things like a laundry facility usually there's some sort of play area for the kids, maybe a dog walk, but not a lot of other amenities. Those are usually cheaper, and then you can use your KOA discount card to get 10% off of that price. Now, the other thing is you just have to evaluate. So like right now, we don't have our KOA membership anymore because we just really aren't going to be staying in any KOA campgrounds. However, if I did run into a situation where I needed to book a KOA, I would just basically run a cost analysis. So let's say, for example, that I want to maybe stay outside of the Washington, D.C. area. There's a very nice KOA there. The options in that area are limited and none of them are cheap. So if it's $100 plus a night and I know I'm going to be there for 5 nights, 10%, you can do the math, that's $50. If I get the discount card for $35, I can save that. So you see, I'm ahead of the game with the math. You just have to make sure that the maths when it comes to those types of discounts and that you're actually going to be using it. Now, another type of club is Harvest Host. So Harvest Host, if you're not familiar with it, is a program where you can park overnight for free with your membership at a lot of different businesses, wineries, breweries, farms, some churches, things like that. And there's no cost to park overnight, except for the fact that they do ask that you either make a donation or that you go into that business and that you spend a minimum of $40 at that business. So that can be a great option if that fits your travel style. We actually are not going to renew our Harvest Host membership this year just because it doesn't really fit within our travel style anymore. You do have to make a reservation in advance. You have to arrive before that business closes. And for the way that we're traveling in this particular season of our life, it just is more difficult to do that. So it doesn't really fit for us, but it can be a great option because essentially it's a very low cost way to park overnight for free versus having to pay those campground fees. So the next way that you can save on campground costs is really being strategic in your trip planning. What that really means is if you're strategic about the time that you're planning on visiting somewhere and avoiding those off seasons, sometimes rates can be significantly higher. We've actually seen it, especially in the Florida Keys, where during the winter months, the rates at a lot of campgrounds are higher than during kind of that shoulder season. So things like fall or later on in the summer months, the rates are not as high. The other thing where you can really start to rack up some savings is by doing things like extended stays. So the majority of campgrounds actually have a cheaper rate if you ask for a weekly rate or even a monthly rate. So that is where you can really save a lot if you're willing to just slow down your travel style a little bit. The two biggest costs with RV life in general are fuel and campgrounds. So if you slow down that travel pace, you can really reduce that monthly outgo with both of those by getting a monthly rate, and then you're saving on some fuel costs as well by not moving around so much. So the number 5 way that you can cut down on those campground costs is by leveraging additional resources. So a great resource is boondocking. So if you are in an area, especially in the western half of the United States, there is a lot of boondocking out there. You can actually find boondocking in other areas of the US too by using a website called freecampsites.net. We'll put a link for that in the description below. Also, Campendium can be a great resource to find some boondocking as well. Not as plentiful on the East Coast, but there are still some spots that you can find, and that's free camping, people. Another resource is things like work camping. So traditionally, in most work camping scenarios, the site that you're in at that campground is provided to that work camper at no cost in exchange for some work around the campground. And then usually you also get some sort of a small hourly rate for the work that you're doing around the campground as well. So that is another great way to cut down on those campground costs by just putting a little bit of effort with work camping. And we've heard from so many people that have done work camping that it's like an amazing experience. They meet so many great people, and it's just another wonderful way to enjoy this lifestyle. So the next principle when it comes to cutting costs on campgrounds, and this is really true with cutting costs on anything at all, is a little principle that I learned from one of our kids' school teachers way back when, and her phrase was do, check, and adjust. So basically what that means is you do something and then you kind of check in to make sure it's still working and adjust as accordingly. So especially with things like campground memberships or discount clubs or anything really, what you want to do, all of those renew usually on an annual basis. So taking a look before that renews. Now here's a little tip for me personally. I do not have anything that auto renews. I don't have our car insurance auto renewing. I always want to make sure that I have an opportunity to look around and make sure that I am still getting the best deal before we renew anything at all. So researching, making sure it's still a good deal, it's still a good fit, this is still gonna help save you money before that you continue on in that membership. That's the adjust part before that you move forward in hanging on to any of those memberships or discount clubs. Sorry, okay, cut, scratch. All right, we wanna go ahead or we wanna wait for the beeping? A next, sure? Okay, that's it. Now, speaking of just cutting costs, reducing costs overall, I'm gonna leave a video right up here about things that now, as an RVer, I would never purchase.